Jenny.
Jon,
How are you?
we're back.
Yes, we are back. How are you?
I'm okay. I was very touched by the story you told earlier. I mean,
Earlier evening last week, last
okay,
segment.
let's just introduce the show and we could get going. You're watching How Can You Say That? The show where we are raw and authentic, where we share it as it is. Segment 27, part 2, which we are calling Israel. And we've chosen this name for it because Jon boldly went into a war zone, married his son, and has returned safely to us.
Well, I married off my son. I didn't marry my son. That was
Married
disturbing.
off his son. And now he's back, and I really respect him for having the courage to do that, because the day he left, we all thought he was nuts. And it's always easy to judge when you're not the one in someone's shoes, especially when you don't know why they take the risks that they take.
May I just say, if there was a war in Guyana, I would have done the same thing. I would have been on that plane right to Guyana, your home country.
Okay. All right, Jon. But anyway, it's a very strange topic to be discussing because there's so many emotions involved with this war. And if I have many Jewish friends, and they all express the same sentiments. And I'm sorry, and my heart breaks for the families that are innocent on both sides. And so I never take a side on anything. I always take the human compassionate side. And so I'm going to leave it there. And Jon, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This because the entire segment, I sat quietly and allowed you to share your experience because I feel it's timely what you've just experienced. And I also believe that so many of us who are on the other side of this are interested to hear from someone who is not mainstream media, who is actually there. And so tonight, what I would like the second segment to look like
Go ahead.
is for you to tell us what it was like being in a war zone.
Yes. Well, let's backstep a little bit. I don't think we should call the segment Israel. We can call the segment like the middle conflict in the Middle East, or Israel versus terrorists, or however you want to phrase it.
The reason I picked Israel is because you went to Israel.
Yeah, but who gives you the right to pick the topic? Isn't it something we have to discuss and agree on? Aren't we both co-producers, allegedly?
No.
Oh, we're not?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then the topic is Israel. Okay.
And you sit here and you play the role of who you are, man boy.
Raw talent, yes.
And then you go home.
Can you change my name to Raw Talent? Would you mind?
And then you come back and you sit there next to me, blow hot air, go home again. And so...
Okay, we can fight about... Did you set the timer?
No, I didn't.
There you go. Again, the technical screw-ups right off the bat. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the Middle East right now.
No, but don't tell us what's going on. We're hearing it everywhere. We want you to tell us what was like for you landing there in the middle of a war.
Okay, well, I was kind of getting to that, but I was giving a little foreplay beforehand.
We get the foreplay from mainstream and every single where we turn.
All right, so bottom line is this. I felt completely safe there. And not to, I don't want to be dramatic and say that I felt unsafe, that it was dangerous, that there's explosions all around me, and I'm wearing a helmet and a flak jacket. I could have been killed at any time. I was in Jerusalem, which is in the middle of the country. All the problems that are going on are in Gaza and all the way in the south and up north on the Lebanese border. But
our border?
Your border.
Yeah.
Not our, your. And well, they're not throwing falafels and shawarma and hummus across the border. It's actually missiles and bombs. But
yeah.
So I was in Jerusalem, which is in the middle of the country, and I didn't hear one single rocket. I didn't hear one single air raid siren. I didn't hear anything. So I'm far from being a hero because I saw nothing. But I will tell you, the only time I really was nervous or concerned is being at the airport, because the airport is a legitimate target that could be hit at any time, because they're bringing in people and flying people home. And if they could shut down the airport, that would cause a lot of logistical problems. Not trying to give Hamas any ideas. I'm just saying the airport was a target.
Oh yeah, Hamas is sitting at their TV watching you and all.
You don't think they watch our podcast from the tunnels underneath in Gaza? I'd be shocked if they didn't, especially knowing that you're half Lebanese. Very likely that they do.
Love how you delude yourself, Jonathan. Okay.
Into believing that I'm way more important than I am.
That this podcast.
Well, if Hamas is listening, I would like to make an offer. I would like to exchange Jenny as a hostage for, give me back 10 Israelis, just 10, and I'll give you her. And she can be in the tunnels with you. And
you can't give what is not yours, but
well, I could bring you there.
Jonathan,
let's go. Come on. You want to go? Let's go.
What's wrong with you? Continue.
I think I couldn't kidnap you if I wanted to. Anyway,
Jonathan, you have your 1 inch taller than I. What is your point?
It's more like 2.5.
No.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so being in the locations that we were at, it felt very safe. There were very few people in the streets, people afraid to leave their house and stuff like that. But I really didn't feel any danger. It was very safe. But I will tell you that the country is in absolute shock and absolute mourning for what transpired, because they lost 1,400 people. And by the way, you know, the crazy thing is that out of the 1,400 people that were killed, many of them were non-Jews. There were many, well, not many. There were a number of Israeli Arabs that were killed by Hamas. There were a number of Thai workers that worked the farms there that were killed. This was a mass slaughter. Americans were killed. Europeans were killed. So when I see these demonstrations, these pro-Hamas demonstrations or pro-Palestinian demonstrations going on in the United States, you're actually demonstrating for an organization that murdered your own citizens. They killed fellow Muslims, Israeli Arabs. They killed Europeans. They killed Thai workers. They killed Americans. And this is the organization that you're parading around and cheering on and saying, good job. I mean, if I was an American, forget being Jewish, if I was just an American and as a fellow American, I'm saying I said if I was, I meant as an American, to see that in my country, U.S. citizens cheering on Hamas for killing Americans and Europeans, I'd be pretty pissed. Setting aside the Jewish part, just as an American, that would make me irate. And if you look at the Palestinians, even, which the Hamas organization is Palestinian, the Palestinians have been killing American citizens all over the world for years. And I find it very ironic how the Palestinian people look at the American government and say, well, they should be more even-handed. Why are they always so pro-Israel instead of pro-Palestinian? What have the Palestinians ever done for America that has been positive? What have they ever done for the world that has ever been positive? They've produced nothing. They've been completely unproductive. They've sucked money out from every country that's donated to them all over the world for 50, 60, 75 years. They've done nothing other than be a money suck and a time suck and a problem for the entire world, and kill citizens from every country all over the world in terrorist attacks. So I don't know why anybody would expect America to be level or even keel in terms of how they look at the Palestinians and the Israelis, and in terms of how they treat them, or why they would favor one side over the other. It boggles my mind. Do you have any thought on that?
I just want to keep the lip zip on this whole thing, because I don't know anything about terrorists or any of this. I'm just sick of wars, period. And someone benefits from these wars, otherwise we won't be having so many of them. And for all of the money that is spent on arms and ammunition, first of all, why is so much spent on it? And second of all, we can't control these situations before they get to these awful wars where innocent people are dying on both sides. My heart aches for little children who are just living in the world because they were brought into it, and they just happen to be born in the wrong country to the wrong side of the fence, whatever that means. So to tell you the truth, my heart has been grieving for all these wars that are supposed to be holy wars. If God is who I'm taught he is, and I've known him to be, why then are the majority of the wars fought in the world so-called holy wars? What the heck is a holy war? How can anything be holy about a war? And these are the kind of questions that have plagued my mind that I have never found answers for.
Well, when you say holy wars, I mean, you're talking about wars that are fought over religion.
When they,
Well, I don't know, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, they had nothing to do with religion.
well,
The biggest wars of all time, the Civil War.
okay.
In America, they had nothing to do with religion.
Not every war is, I'm not saying every war has been over religion, but the majority of the wars in the Middle East are
okay. If you're isolating to the Middle East, yes, mostly between Jews and Muslims for the most part. And they just can't get along with each other because there's serious ideological differences between the sides. And they both believe that they're right.
So then what is important, being right or serving God?
No, what's important is the reality on the ground. That's the way I look at it. You know, when you look at a lot of the Palestinian claims about the Jews being occupiers of land and having taken their home territory, the indigenous population of the land of Israel has always been the Jewish people, going back to the times of the Bible. You look at the first temple, the second temple.
The Bible beyond, before or pre 1813, you will see a different thing in the Bible. Look,
1813. That's not the Bible. The Bible is thousands of years ago. 1813 was like 200 years ago.
Yes, but what I'm saying is there was a different recorded. Okay, I don't want to get
talking about difference in population in the 1800s versus ancient times.
The script, the actual book, anyway, look, the Bible. I don't want to go
What Bible from 1813 are you talking about?
In 1813, there was a treaty that claims that Israel is leased, and that lease runs out in October 30th of this year. Go check it, go read it.
What, like from the Ottoman Turks or something? Or
I don't want to go there. I don't want to deal with the technicalities of this. All I want to say is, if someone beyond the religious organizations and the countries were not benefiting from these wars, that would not happen.
See, I don't think anything, the only one that benefits from the wars are the producers of military equipment. There's no benefit to the state of Israel or to any of the Arab countries.
I'm not labeling the country that's benefiting.
No,
I'm telling you, somebody way powerful.
No.
Or some organization or group.
This is.
But money is being made from these wars.
No.
Don't tell me.
The only money being made is by the military contractors, not the government. The governments are spending money to take sides in the wars. They're not making money off this. And right, no, but
okay, John, whatever you say, but I don't agree with you. And I have my reasons why, and I've already been told I'm being watched. So I'm going to be very careful what I say. But you know, I am someone who I do my homework, and I'm very careful that my sources where I get my information are credible. And so at the end of the day, I don't have to be right. It's not important to me to be right. As a matter of fact, sometimes I wish I weren't right, because I'm not an egotistical maniac. What I want to be right about is that people wake up and see how stupid these wars are and find a way to get along. The land, we all have to die and leave it.
I graded your homework.
So why are we killing each other for land that we can't take with us where we're going?
So unfortunately, you have a lot of your, you don't have a lot of facts on the.
No, John, whenever it comes
on the lay of the
you,
land.
Whenever it comes to you, I never have facts.
No, you have facts. You don't, when it comes to certain topics, you don't understand the lay of the land, you don't understand the history, and you don't understand the dynamics. I'm not blaming you for that. If you ask me about the history, look, if Guyana went to war with one of its, what's the neighboring country to Guyana?
Venezuela.
Okay,
But
so Venezuela and Guyana went to war, and I said to you, the Venezuelans are crazy. What are they attacking Guyana for? And you know Guyana, and you know that historically speaking, the Guyanese people are right because of this. Like, who am I to insert myself in that conversation? I know nothing about it. So on the surface of it,
I'm not saying I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm saying I don't know what you're talking about.
I live alone, and you don't. I spend the majority of my time doing my research.
Okay, so let's.
I come upon a lot of information, and I only accept what resonates with my soul and what makes sense. And so I don't want to argue with you. I respect what you believe. I respect you think that I don't know the history. I know more than you think I know. But I'm not here to be right. I understand what you are saying. All I am saying is, when are these stupid wars going to stop?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer your question. The answer to the question is, there in the Middle East, between the Israelis and the Arab countries and the Palestinians, there is one basic dispute, and that's a dispute over who owns the land.
Exactly.
Period. So prior to they talk about how the West Bank, which the Jewish people refer to as Judea and Samaria, which are their ancient names because they were always Jewish populated areas. Prior to 1967, Jordan, the country of Jordan, controlled the West Bank, and the Egyptians controlled Gaza. There was never a country of Palestine on those areas. It was Jordan, and it was part of Egypt, Gaza.
How far back are we talking?
1967. Prior to 1967. Yeah.
Okay.
Up to 1967, the West Bank, that entire disputed, or what they call occupied territory, was controlled by the Jordanian government. It was part of Jordan. Gaza was controlled by Egypt. Period. The Jews had nothing to do with those areas. In 1967, there was a war, and the Israelis captured the entire West Bank. They captured the entire Gaza, and they captured the entire Golan Heights from Syria. They were attacked by all these countries. They beat the crap out of them, and they captured all of this land. Once they captured it, they began to settle it. They began to move Jewish people there, build cities, build towns, and move people there because they captured this land in a war, just like the United States captured Texas from Mexico in a war. When you lose a war and you lose territory, that's just the way it goes. Now, the Arab population, the Palestinians, say now, well, if you give us back the West Bank and you give us back Gaza and you allow us to form our Palestinian country here, we'll have peace with you. But you had it before 1967, and you still went to war in 1948, in 1956, in 1967, 1973. You attacked and went to war in all of those years, even though you already had that territory that you say, if we give it back to you now, you'll sign a peace treaty. If I take this phone from you, your phone, and you attack me, and I say, stop attacking me, I'll sign a peace treaty. I'll give it back to you. You're going to say, but why would you be happy with something that you had before that you don't have now? I'm just going to give you back. You're starting at square one. Why would that make you happy now?
But why is it important to you to make it happy or not?
So I'll tell you why.
No, let me finish.
Let me answer your question. The answer to your question is because Jerusalem, both the western part and the eastern part of Jerusalem and those other areas, are meaningful to the Jewish people, historically speaking. In ancient times, Jerusalem was the capital of the Jewish land. When they do archaeological digs from thousands of years ago, they find pieces of things that mention Israel, that mention King David, that mention how the Jews lived there and inhabited this territory. Jews were always present in the land of Israel. It's not occupied territory when you're living in a place that you've always historically lived in. And by the way, I think in 2005, the Israeli government gave the entire Gaza Strip that they were running and administering, they gave it back to the Palestinians and said, here, we're leaving, it's all yours. And what happened? There was no more territorial dispute about it. They put up a sign, welcome to Palestine. They call it Palestine, and here's your country. And what did they do? They militarized it. It became a hotbed of terrorist activity that consistently launches rockets and attacks Israel. There's no territorial dispute about it. They gave it back to them. Here you go. You wanted it. It's all yours. 2.5 million Palestinians live there. They were ruled autonomously by the Palestinian Authority, which was then overthrown by Hamas. And Hamas took over the entire Gaza Strip, militarized it, and became an arch enemy of the state of Israel. In Hamas's charter, it says, you could read it online, They want one thing: the destruction of the Jewish nation and the murder of all the Jews that live there. That's in their charter they formed in the 1980s.
So let me ask you something, Jonathan. These wars have been going on for years and years and years. And for me, always, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. How many innocent lives are going to be lost? There's got to be a way for this nonsense madness to stop.
Of course there is.
And so there has to be an equitable way where both sides feel like, okay, this is a fair compromise. Because I almost don't want to say anything because I don't want to be attacked. But I have a completely different feeling about all of this. A lot of what you're saying is true. But it's like we've abolished slavery, right? And we start enslaving people again because suddenly we realize we need people to come and work for us for free. Then to me, it's a similar concept because you're repeating the cycles of the past and the argument is the same. The war is for the same thing, the land. And I look at this and I think, everybody living in Israel now will die one day and then leave the land. When you look at what all the brutality on both sides, there are innocent people involved on both sides, and the people calling the shots, they are not, their families are not being massacred.
It's not true. In the Israeli population is mandatory military service. Everyone that lives in that country
No, what I'm
has
saying
to serve in the
is-
army. The prime minister has children. The defense minister have children. All those children have served in the army or currently do serve in the army. They have skin in the game.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, when the attack happened, the last attack, the people who were massacred, they're innocent people just living in their homes.
Correct.
They didn't want the war.
Correct.
And now the Palestinians who are being attacked, it's a lot of innocent children. You see it. And so it just, when I see babies, I mean, I have to tell you the truth. I can't watch it. I just can't watch it because I never look at another human being and go, oh, you're Russian, you're Jewish. I look at everyone as God's children. I don't care. If you're living under a bridge, you're God's child. If you're living in a mansion, you're God's child. And this is my simplistic way of looking at the world. Call me ignorant, call me dumb, call me whatever title you want to give me. I don't really care. I'm comfortable in my skin. And I know at the core, I'm a humanitarian. And my heart bleeds for the innocent people on all sides.
Well, unfortunately, there has to be something that we call a deterrent. And the deterrent is that when you attack innocent civilians and you're hit back 100 times as hard, it's going to be a deterrent from you trying to do that again, or from other places trying to do that again, because they're going to understand that the damage that's going to come to them for their actions is going to be so monumental and historic that it's going to prevent them from doing it. So in this case, people say, well, you know, the response has to be proportionate. Proportionate? Why? When the United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki with atomic weapons and killed tens of thousands of people.
Did that make it right?
It ended the war. World War II ended because of that. So yeah, how many millions of lives were saved because the war was finally ended? Innocent civilians were wiped out. But you know what? It saved many, many millions of additional people. So sometimes that response, and that was the only way to end the war with Japan, such a knockout blow that they could not bear to continue that war, knowing that this is going to happen in another city and another city and another city until they finally just threw their hands up. So that's what's happening now. The response is completely disproportionate because it has to be. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are going to have to die because they're going to all have to learn that if you're going to do this, this is going to be the response, and they're going to think twice about doing it again. And I'm sorry to have to say that, but that's just the way it is, because it will save future lives. And by the way, the innocent Palestinians, they're not so innocent. If you read the textbooks in the schools of how they're raised and what they're taught to hate, they're taught to kill. They're taught that suicide bombing and blowing yourself up and taking other people down with you is some sort of badge of honor where you're going to heaven for. their whole culture revolves around
But
brutality against what they view as the Zionistic Jewish enemy. So they need, if you want to know how to stop these things, this is how you do it. You reprogram the generations that you're raising to not hate. The Abraham Accords that were signed between Israel and 4 Arab countries, when you expand that and create good relations between the nations, and they learn to get to know each other, to trade with each other, to share with each other, both the populations, the military, the governments, that's how you start to take the hatred out of there. Saudi Arabia is rewriting all their textbooks now, removing anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish language from those books. It's a process. But over the course of the next 1 or 2 or 3 generations, it will change the mindset of how these children are raised. And then they'll learn to not hate and to get along. Jewish schools don't have any of that propaganda about hating Arabs or killing Muslims. We don't have any of that. It doesn't exist in the Jewish curriculum in schools, but it does on their side. It's slowly starting to change in Arab countries. Saudi Arabia will eventually sign the Abraham Accords, and many Muslim countries will follow. And that's the beginning of laying the foundation of how these conflicts between the countries will stop and they will go away. It's not something that happens overnight, but that process is underway right now. You have these rogue organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon that don't want that to happen. And that's why they become the thorn in the side. And they think they threw the Saudi Arabian deal out of whack now because everything's in turmoil. And they did temporarily. But in the end, those organizations don't win because there's good and there's evil. And people will eventually realize what's good, what's evil, and they will understand to be on the side of good. And let me say one other thing. In terms of how the Israelis fight the wars, you know that when they bomb the Palestinian territories, like in Gaza, do you know what they do? They drop leaflets in Arabic warning residents that they're going to be under attack and to leave. They give an opportunity to evacuate.
Yeah, but while they're leaving, they were attacked.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
So then the media is once again reporting false.
They drop leaflets in Arabic, letting them know to leave. Then what they do is a lot of times they'll call, if they're going to bomb a building, they call every resident of that building. They have everyone cell number. They call them, telling them to get out, giving them a warning. Then what they do is they drop not a bomb, but what's called a knock on the roof, meaning a small explosion on the roof, letting you know, here we come, it's coming soon. It's your last opportunity to get out. The Ukrainians are having apartment buildings flattened left and right by the Russians. No warning, no nothing. The Israelis provide all these levels of warning to get out. And you know what happens? Hamas is not letting the population leave. The Israelis said, get out of the north, move south. Hamas is stopping them from leaving.
Imagine being those people. I mean,
but put the blame where it belongs.
No, it shouldn't be any blame, Jonathan. We should all be thinking of how we can play a part to bring about peace.
Let me ask you a question. During World War II, you know how Gaza was...
It's not around for World War II.
I understand.
So don't ask me anything about it.
No, this is history. People were annoyed that the Israelis were blockading Gaza, cutting off water, cutting off food in order to blockade everything to get their hostages back and get the terrorists out. In Germany, when the United States and all the allies were attacking Germany, did they provide food? Did they provide gasoline, electricity? No, it's war. And the Israelis fight war the most moral way that any military in history has ever fought. I don't get who's
fighting war. I hate wars, and I feel
no one likes it.
They can be avoided. No, there's so many people like, oh, we bought that. I hear people, I watch them, and it really bothers my soul. I don't care which country or where. The bottom line is these are humans on both sides of the fence. I feel really sorry.
The soldiers are humans too. So are the soldiers, not just civilians, it's the soldiers too.
That's what I.
And then the difference between children, men, women, they're all people.
I agree with you.
So why are people always like, well, they attack women and children? Why are men not part of humanity?
I just don't like being in the world for this kind of stuff. That's all I can say. I don't know why I agreed to be on a planet for this, but apparently I did. So I'm gonna have to grin and bear it because my voice is just like a breath in the wilderness. So, but I still have an opinion and I'm still gonna stick to it, and my heart hurts for everybody involved. And thank you so much for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. You will notice I didn't say much because my opinions aren't popular. And I am not about being popular or about being right. but I stand up for that which I believe. And I'm so sorry for all the Israelis who've lost loved ones. And I'm sorry for all the people on the other side of the fence who are also losing loved ones. And there's not much I can do except pray for everybody involved. And next week, we will see you with a happier topic. And you'll get me back in my element. And hopefully, man, boy. And thank you for watching us. And we will see you next
I'm going
time.
to change one of the slogans that the Palestinians use all the time. My new slogan is, from the river to the sea, Israel will always be, instead of their slogan, which I'm not going to even give them credit to repeat. Thank you. And
Just so you know, every time you throw dirt, you lose ground. See you next time.
good night.